Welcome to the official podcast of Cardinals Nation 24/7. Each week, we put a unique perspective on bringing you the latest news, updates, and rumors of the St. Louis Cardinals baseball organization. Join the nation and stay informed by liking us on Facebook, following us on Twitter, subscribing to us on the podcast form of your choice, and most of all, by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you all for supporting the nation. Let's get things started. Here are your hosts, Jared Redwine, Chris Lawless, and Larry Cox.
Hello, Cardinals Nation, and welcome to another episode of the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. I'm Jared Redwine, and I'm joined, as always, by my friends and my co-hosts, the living legend Larry Cox. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well, my son, my friend. I'll be at it.
That's my friend.
And joining us, as always, from Studio 6 is the founder of Cardinals Nation 24/7, Mr. Chris Lawless. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. Ready to talk some Cardinal baseball with you guys.
Yeah, guys, today we're going to cover a couple things just so everybody knows what's watching. We're going to obviously discuss the Molina injury. Flaherty gets another W. Wainwright pitches a complete game but doesn't quite pick up a victory. But the starting rotation seems to be doing a little better. And then injury updates, as always, with the rest of the team. But Chris, we'll start off by jumping to you. The starting rotation looks to be a little more locked in. We've talked about them only going 5 innings in our last podcast, and now it looks like they're starting to pull it together, and we've had some pretty good outings from the last 3 games, including tonight's.
Yeah, it's nice to see Gant going long into games. Flaherty had a nice outing. Wainwright, had complete game, although he's on the losing end. It was good to see that. Even tonight's game where Carlos Martinez is grinding it out, you're not taxing the bullpen and you're getting the most out of your starting pitching. That's good to see.
Yeah, Larry, you have to figure the last night's game was a little bit disappointing. Wainwright and the Cardinals lost to Rhys Hoskins, not the Phillies, but just the individual. Give up 2 home runs. Unfortunately, they were both to him, 2 solo shots. Waino pitched another great game after he had a hell of an outing before, racking up the strikeouts and didn't get a victory. And then same thing happened for him again today. You got to see, you got to like the way he's pitching and the way he looks, but obviously a little disappointed that he didn't come up with a victory in either one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about the game last night? Wheeler pitched a hell of a game. You got to tip your hat to the guy. Sometimes the other team just does a really good job. There's nothing you can do about it. Your offense doesn't help you out. Waino pitched his side, did his part. It's nice to see the old man, coming through when the team needs it. The pitching coming around. It's pretty good. It's an exciting time to be a Cardinals fan again.
Yeah, it's always good. It was a big scare for us, seeing the starting rotation not going very deep into the games. And now it seems like they've kind of righted the ship, at least temporarily, and have figured out a way to get that done. And staying on the same topic, Chris, it looks like we're going to go to an intermittent 6-man rotation with Oviedo making a start on Wednesday. Your thoughts on the 6-man and Oviedo making a start?
I do like Oviedo getting a start. We've talked prior that having a 6-man rotation really wouldn't benefit the starters if, they're only going minimal innings. It might help a guy like Wainwright get an extra day of rest, but it would keep somebody like Jack Flaherty maybe from being sharp. But right now with the pitchers all clicking on all cylinders like they have, I don't think that, it can only benefit them to have him come up. I know they got a long stretch of games that they want to ride this 6-man rotation out for a little bit, and hopefully it'll keep the bullpen a little fresh too.
Yeah, Larry, I know we've talked about, the guys going deep into games has been more important than a 6-man rotation. You see adding a 6-man now, it looks like they're starting to click, like Chris said, causing a problem, or just being that much more of a benefit?
I think, like Chris said, the length of the amount of games that we have consecutively, that's going to be nothing but advantageous to the team. And not only that, but you're getting to see a young arm get a chance to prove what he did wasn't a fluke last time he had his outing. It'll also help the bullpen as well. It gives that extra arm in the bullpen as well that, if he takes a start, maybe he can go a little deeper than the other starters went. But now they're all starting to click, like you said. I mean, I would see that this is nothing but a positive. So,
yeah, I'm kind of on the same line with you, Chris. I'm excited to see Oviedo come in and get some getting a couple chances in the starting rotations, and then maybe we'll see something click with, Reyes maybe coming in for long relief for Cabrera. But with the Oviedo move comes another move. Chris, you got to figure, I don't know who's going to be going down, but you have to think it would be Ponce de Leon. He's been someone that's disappeared and been forgotten, basically.
One might think so, but the Hurst call up really didn't make a whole lot of sense. And when you do have Dean and Williams both, I don't really see the point in having him up. They could send Ponce down because he has struggled, but I don't think having Hurst up really is helping this team much. I mean, at most we've seen a couple pinch hit at bats, and I don't think he's really, putting any kind of fear on getting a spot over the guys that are currently out there. And then you got Bader that'll be coming back before we know it.
Yeah, so you think Hurst will be down now and then Ponce when Bader's ready?
Could be.
I was kind of thinking maybe the opposite. Maybe Ponce will be sitting down now, and then Hurst will just be riding around until Bader gets back, who is trying to make a comeback. And Mikolas is throwing as well, but it doesn't. As long as our starting rotation's clicking with Kim and Martinez and Wainwright and everybody all together, we don't really have a rush for him to come back. I would like for Oviedo to come in and actually make some kind of impact and make them have a tough decision on their hands whether or not sending Oviedo back down after this little experiment is going to happen or if he's going to stick around. I would like it for it to be the latter, of course. But speaking of which, we have seen Ponce disappear. Chris, what do you think the reasoning is behind that? We haven't seen him at all, basically. We haven't seen him warming up in the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple, rough outings and, gets pulled out of the starting rotation. Mike Schilt and the way he's managed the bullpen, it seems as though Tyler Webb has pitched a lot more games than what he has. He has gone to him quite a bit. Gallegos and Helsley are pretty well consistently thrown out there as well. And, even Genesis Cabrera has pitched more than Ponce has, but I'm surprised he hasn't went to Cabrera more. But then again, those are your long relief type roles that usually, even if our pitchers weren't going deep in a game, he likes to have that Reyes and Hicks 1-2 punch at the end of a game, and he doesn't really pitch our relievers more than an inning. So Ponce has just kind of been the odd man out, regardless of his struggles, just for having a spot on the way that Schilt's handling the bullpen.
Yeah, Larry, now back to you too. Somebody like Oviedo coming up and making a good performance could make someone like Ponce expendable or else basically make him disappear. Looks like he was up long enough just to get that book released.
Yeah. Well, we during the spring training coming into the season, we talked about the plethora of pitching that we do have. And there are a lot of teams that are starving for pitching right now. And there's always that outside chance that we talked about that maybe the expansion for next year with the new contract, CBA might add 2 teams. So why not trade a player like a Ponce now if he's not an impact player on this roster rather than lose him later in a draft to the franchise draft? Or why not solidify the young talent that we have in the lower ranks? I mean, you're always going to need – we know Herrera's probably the heir apparent for catcher. Maybe add another catcher at the single A or the low levels. Or maybe a first baseman. Goldie's not exactly getting younger, so there's always possibilities there, but maybe Ponce just needs to sharpen up a little bit as well. Maybe it's to light a fire under him.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of these minor league players – too, just touching on that, a lot of them, they start up as one position and end up becoming another before they make the big league roster. So who knows? But you did touch on catchers. So speaking of catchers, Chris, Yadi Molina to the injured list. We saw him get hurt and kind of tweak his foot there, and then he sat out an extra game. He was removed in one game and then sat out another one, but made his return. And then the move was announced. I guess maybe he tried to play through it a little too tough. So it's a little bit of a blow, though, because he's been a huge offensive asset and defensive. He's handled the staff really well. But on the flip side of that, Kinsner has looked really well in this early going. His limited opportunities, he's hit well. He's also been catching well and handling the pitching staff very well. So your thoughts just on Yadi going down, if you can touch on that, and also your thoughts on Kinsner and how he's looking so far this year.
Yeah, you want to say it's a huge blow to have one of your best hitters in Molina, even though that's not what you'd consider him. You'd consider it just by the defensive metric, but he's been one of our best hitters, and to have him go down, that does suck. It does help Kisner get some playing time. Their corresponding move was to have Ali Sanchez called up. We've talked before about if Kisner wasn't getting much playing time, if it would make sense to have him on the trading block. And when you've got a Tyler Heineman and Ali Sanchez both that could be capable backups, it could mean that he's Carson Kelly 2.0, getting blocked with playing time. But in a situation like this where, he's getting some playing time, he hits the ball well, he's called some really good games behind the plate too. And I think some of that speaks to the fact that he's come up through the minors with a lot of these pitchers that he's catching and has a good relationship with it. Now, that being said, too, with Kisner, if the team did decide to move him, I read an article where Bob Nightingale says that if the Washington Nationals are out of the running soon, that they could be shopping Max Scherzer. Now, Andrew Kisner might be a piece that you could offer, along with maybe Ponce and a couple prospects. That would be a dream come true, but I think that's something maybe later on down the season to discuss.
Yeah, no, I mean, he has to get playing time, and maybe this is a good auditioning period for him regardless of how he plays. And we don't know the extent of Yadi's injury. Yadi is usually a guy that can break bones and even worse, and somehow only spends his minimum required time on the injured list. I almost called it by the former name. So it'll be interesting to see, but a lot of people forget that Ali Sanchez is our 24th ranked prospect in the Cardinals system. So it'll be interesting to get a little look at him too in limited appearances and kind of get another look. Obviously, like Larry was mentioning before, and I'm about to kick it to Larry, Herrera is our new main prospect, so they want him playing every day. So somebody like Sanchez is going to come up and see limited opportunities behind Kinsner, but probably more so than you would see Kinsner for Yadi. I would say Sanchez will probably get every third or fourth game would be my guess. Larry, your thoughts though on the GOAT Yadi going down after he's been performing so well for the team? Luckily we're in the middle of a good pitching outing as far as team-wide goes in these last couple series, and the offense seems to be clicking. So maybe if you're going to lose him, now's kind of the time.
Well, as my fantasy team and fantasy owner, I hate to see Yadi go down. He's one of my leading hitters. But also just the fact that we have 17 games in 17 days basically before we have a day off. I didn't understand the whole concept that Yadi's going to try to catch all those games anyhow. It did make sense to me. I like this move. It just depends on what they do with Kisner, letting him play or not, or are they going to let Sanchez show what he can do? That becomes the other issue. I mean, how many times do we see Kisner get his chance last year or the year before, and then he got benched behind another player that really didn't have a future with the team? So that's what I fear the most. I want to see the kid play. I've always said that. I like letting the kids play, especially now that it's showing that by them playing, they brought all the energy they brought to this team, and then adding the missing piece of Arenado and those players, that's really sparked this team this year.
Yeah, I think Kinsler's going to get the majority of the time behind the plate, but I think you'll see Sanchez spell him more often than you would see Kinsner spell Yadi, if that makes sense. Because, Kinsner is also going the last couple of years to not having much of a workload to now throwing in, so I'm sure they're going to work to get him some off days, especially if you see the doubleheader situation or the night to day game situations coming up. I think you'll probably see Sanchez get a start there. He's known for being a pretty good hitter, so I guess maybe we'll see what can happen. Now, on the flip side of that with the hitting, Chris, we've still got a lot of guys on the team that are not performing very well. Paul DeYoung is one of them. He's one of your top guys. He's hitting under 180. O'Neill just came back, so take that with a grain of salt. He's limited at bat, so if he has a couple of good games, that average could jump up, but he's 167. Justin Williams, for some reason, keeps playing everything. He's an everyday player. He's only batting 190 after today. So you would think with him playing every day, that would be getting a little old by now. At that rate, I would almost rather see Edman in the outfield and Carpenter getting more reps at second. At least that's my opinion. But we've got a lot of those guys that are not still performing, so we've got a huge part of the order that's still missing link. Maybe they're playing Williams a lot because when Bader gets back, no one will be able to complain that Williams should be hitting and not Bader, and then it'll be a defensive upgrade. I don't know your thoughts on the Justin Williams experiment and why it's gone on for so long.
I think, like you said, it's just a matter of giving him as many opportunities as possible, maybe to showcase what he's got, because he has had the hardest road of getting a spot. With Bader coming back, I mean, you do have Dean in the mix that, in my opinion, probably should be getting more playing time than Williams. At times, both of them look good in the field and look good at the plate. Other times, not so much. And those are maybe sometimes we call those the 4A players, like they're too good for AAA and not good enough to make the big league club. But you kind of mentioned Carpenter. His batting average, though, .075. I think, Mazalak had said in an article when some people were venting their frustrations about Carpenter that they wanted to give him as much time as possible. But with, O'Neill coming back and with Bader coming back, his opportunities are going to be very limited. And because the production hasn't been there, they're going to have a hard time justifying giving him some opportunities going forward. O'Neill, like you said, his batting average hasn't been great. He did have a couple home runs in his comeback game, got a curtain call, which was nice. But, hopefully you'll see some consistency from him. And when Bader comes back, God help us if Bader's a 200 or below hitter, because we're needing some offense.
Yeah, and a lot of things are clicking for the team. In that same interview, Mazalak said that, basically this experiment with Carpenter, they could only allow it to go on so long. He was pretty candid about basically saying they're not at the designated for assignment, part yet, but they're not ruling it out. Basically, they're being pretty candid, which I thought was pretty interesting especially from Mazalak to throw that out there and say, we do have limitations with running this and seeing how long this works out for. So that was interesting, but you can only have, your bottom 4 guys today in the order, 4 of the 5 guys, with the exception of Kinsler, were batting under 200. You can't have a typical, we've talked about this in years past, can't have a typical lineup with that many guys not performing, because then we've got the top half now hitting well and the bottom half not. Larry, your thoughts? I mean, I want to just bring it up because obviously it's a problem. We've won the last, several games, and we swept the series with the Reds, which was good news. But, some of these other bats have to start clicking, or maybe, why hasn't Dean got a shot?
I think early on, the miscues that Dean had in the outfield a little bit kind of put a damper on his, his sparkle, I guess you could say. The other thing is the Williams thing, the only thing I can think of is because there's no minor league facility really to send him to, what's good's it going to do for a player like him to go down to the alternate side or just to work out with no other players' reality now that he's played in the majors? So there's that. You don't want to hinder his growth either, despite what we see right now. The kid's got talent. It's just he's not putting it all together. But it's just a sad state of affairs when we're looking at Bader bringing us 200 average, and he's going to be the top hitter in the outfield other than Carlson. And that's a sad part for us. But I read the same article Chris read that about Mazalak and Matt Carpenter, sorry. And Carpenter, I think he's on a short leash. I still say I'm looking at probably that May 1st. If Bader's back with O'Neill, there's no spot really for Carpenter to be sitting there. The outfield, I can live with Bader's hitting 200 as long as Carlson's hitting, because the defense is different. That's the one thing we do know that Bader brings. So, I mean, that's nothing but better for us. But even if we had a better option at second base than Carpenter with Edman moving to the outfield, I'd be happy with that. The problem is Edman right now is, I've forgotten who Wong is, to be honest with you. So,
yeah, so have the Brewers because he's been hurt. And then coming along, let's go to the flip side of that. You're going to have, to retouch on that before we move along. DeYoung is going to be a guy that's going to be streaky, and I feel like O'Neill's very similar as far as offensive styles. O'Neill obviously has more tools because he's got a lot more speed, but both those guys are going to hit, but they're going to get streaky, like you said, Chris. O'Neill's going to get a couple bombs in one game. We've seen DeYoung do it, and we'll see DeYoung do it again. You can live with a couple of those guys, but not 4. So hopefully Bader is able to turn the tide and show some little offensive uptick in production this year would be nice. But flip side of that, we do got a couple of guys. I'm not going to really touch on Goldie and Arenado because they're performing like normal. Their average isn't quite where we wanted it to be. We haven't seen them perform, and they haven't had to. But when those guys start clicking and can carry the offense, that'll be impressive. But like we were just saying with Larry, he was just saying who's Wong. Tommy Edman is still doing an amazing job. Had another great game today. He's doing a great job getting on base, running the base pass, but we suggested moving Carlson up in the second spot even before the season started, and now they've done so, Chris, and he is performing. He's hitting over 300. He's getting on base. He looks good. He's moving Edman. Even when he's not getting on base, he's moving the runner. Your thoughts on Carlson? He's turning into the player we expect him to be.
Yeah, we were on board with moving him up, with the exception of maybe the fact of him and Edman both being switch hitters back to back, that might, kind of cause the Cardinals not to go that route. But I think a lot of what's helping Carlson too is when you've got somebody like Edman taking professional at bats that has been on base every single game this season. Tommy Edman's been on base. That's just incredible. Mm-hmm. And Edman has kind of turned into your prototypical leadoff guy. I mean, he's got speed, he's contact, can spray to all fields, and currently being able to hold down second base and to play good outfield too. He's made a lot of hell of plays in the outfield. But having Carlson batting second in front of Goldschmidt and Arenado, I think that's given him some better pitches to hit. It doesn't clog him down with some struggling, bats lower in the lineup. The thing with this team, we've said it's feast or famine a lot. But as much as hitting is contagious, not hitting seems to be contagious. So like you said, with guys like DeYoung and O'Neill, it seems like when they're all clicking, those are the games we're scoring 11 runs. And then the other games, it's like both of them over 4 with 3 strikeouts. That's something that, it's going to be hard to overcome for this team. But as far as Carlson, I mean, he's definitely making a case for Rookie of the Year, and moving him up totally made sense. I know a lot of fans were clamoring for it. Glad to finally see it, and it's paying off.
They were clamoring for it. But Larry, Carlson does look pretty good. I mean, he's moved up to the 2-hole, and he's getting some good pitches behind Edman and in front of Goldschmidt like we thought he would, which has given him the opportunity to get locked in. Hopefully he stays there. And Carlson is the type of player that could, if he gets locked in enough and once he gets his feet settled underneath him, he can carry this team, as we're kind of seeing him and Edman being the 1-2 punch, and Goldie and Arenado haven't had to become the superstars as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, we said all along we thought Carlson was his best spot for him, was put him in the 2. The problem, I mean, the thing is now is you're looking at the downside of the roster. How many consecutive outs are we going to have after Arenado? That's the problem that I see. But again, we're establishing a young player, and that's why I keep saying, I'd like to see him just move to right field, bat second, be left alone, and let him grow there and become accustomed to what he's supposed to be doing. So Edman has surprised me. I mean, again, I'm big enough of a person to admit I didn't see this kid getting any better than was 2 years ago. So I'm very impressed with him as well.
Yeah, he's made some good defensive plays. I still don't think – I know a lot of people are trying to sell it a lot easier. But, I still don't think he's the defensive player Colton Wong is, but he's better than average defensive player. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. Colton Wong is probably one of the best defensive second basemen we've seen in a very long time, or will see for a long time. Don't mean that Edman's a bad one. I'm just saying I think you're taking a tick down, but I do think Edman is by far the superior offensive player, and I'm going to say probably a better baseball mind, not as much of a – I think Wong is kind of like Carlos Martinez, or was until last year, was one of those players that kind of would get emotional and get in his own head a little bit. So things have worked out well on that front, but Edman's got a .333 on base percentage, and Dylan Carlson after tonight, which would be Tuesday for everyone that's watching and listening, is Carlson's got basically at a 400 on base percentage and a 927 OPS. So still some amazing numbers that he is putting up. We're taking a look at the division standings, and there's not a lot of room separating these teams. The Cardinals are still in the middle of the pack, Chris. And leading the way in the division after the Cardinals took care of the Reds are the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have got some pretty good pitching. But second is a little bit of a surprise. The Pittsburgh Pirates are having a good start to the season, a good month of April. Your thoughts still on the division and where we stand, and what do you think it's going to look? Is it going to look like this for the rest of the year, you think?
I mean, I knew coming in that we would beat up on the division would beat up on us, but Pittsburgh's been a surprise because I had them pegged at maybe winning 60 games for the season. and they've come out and somehow managed to get some wins. But with the Reds, it's kind of been their bats have been what's carried them, but their pitching is what's cost them. When you look at the Cubs, the Cubs had such a cold streak with their bats at the beginning of the season, and they don't really have any arms that scare you. But between those two teams, I mean, I figured that would be middle of the pack and Pittsburgh would be buried down at the bottom. So it's a little surprising. I did think Milwaukee would be our toughest competition. And even though they haven't been 100% with Yelich being out, Wong being out, they do have Burns and Woodruff that have looked really tough. And then, of course, they've got Hader and Williams in the bullpen. So that, I think, will still be our – yeah. Those will be our biggest competition will be the Brewers, but I do think the Reds probably their bats will keep them in the running for third place. The Cubs could be in sell mode, by the end of the year. If they keep struggling like this, they've got some pieces like Rizzo, Bryant, Contreras, and Baez that I could see them shopping to maybe try to rebuild that team.
Yeah, the Cubs, who really knows? I mean, they talk about extending some guys and they talk about not extending them, so who knows where they're going to be until they're finally done. I don't think re-signing everyone is going to be a feasible option for them. Larry, your thoughts on the Central Division so far? I mean, the Reds look pretty good. I think for us, our key is going to be consistency, and we don't have to score a bunch of runs because I know our offense is kind of back and forth, but as long as our pitching is consistent, like we talked about, back in spring training, the three of us, we said we believe our pitching is our strong suit. And now that our starters are going deeper into games, it's going to kind of take that pressure off the bullpen. And that's going to be our key, because if our pitching is doing well, we don't need to score 10 runs. We could win off 3 or 4, which I think we're more than capable of. But your thoughts on the division so far, Larry, where the Cubs are and the Pirates now for tonight's game, we're tied with them in second place. So your thoughts on the division so far?
Yeah, like Chris said, I think the Pirates are the huge surprise in the division. I think they've won more games this year than anybody planned that they thought they would do for the whole year, to be honest with you. They're getting by. They're just doing what they have to do to survive. Milwaukee playing as well as they are, even without Yelich being as effective as it was in the past. We know, again, their bullpen is probably one of the top 3 or 4 in the league. Then on top of that, they've had good starting pitching, which has been the surprise for me. I didn't think Milwaukee's starting pitching would be as good as it is. The Cubs, I think they're going to go full sell mode, and I think it's going to be way before the deadline, because they'll want to get rid of those players, the Baez, the Bryant. Rizzo is the one that kind of I don't know. I don't know what they have in the minors to replace him. I know they've got shortstops and third baseman, but the first baseman, I think that leaves a huge gap for them. Contreras, they've talked about trading him for the last couple of years. I mean, last year they played that catching. They had different catchers every week. It seemed like they were playing last 2 years. Then on top of that, the Reds, as long as they're home, they're just pounding out the home runs. They get away from that ballpark, and it just seems like they struggle a lot. I mean, they actually did win yesterday, but they're 3-7 in their last 10. So I think they're going to struggle with pitching all year. So
yeah, and still, no matter where we're at, even though we're through 1 month of the season, everybody's just a couple of games apart. And just looking at some of the division standings, you guys, we said the National League East was going to be the workhorse and the toughest division in baseball, and so far, they definitely look like they are the worst. The first place team is 500. That's the Mets. They've had some missed games due to COVID back and forth, so a lot of those teams haven't played as many. But Atlanta, Philadelphia, they're all under 500, thanks to the Cardinals for the Phillies, anyways. But the Marlins, the Nationals only have won 8 games. They're tied with Colorado for being horrible, the worst in the National League. It looks like the Twins and the Tigers have 7 wins apiece in the American League. So looks like what we thought was going to be interesting is not, but we were correct on the West. We knew it was going to be the Dodgers and the Padres beating up on each other, and the rest were going to be horrible, and that's what it looks like it's going to be. And I don't want to go off too far off topic of Cardinals baseball, but have you guys watched any of those Dodgers and Padres games? Those games have been exciting and fun to watch.
They've been exciting, and I was telling Tina when we were watching them that they had a playoff feel to them. The games it meant something. It wasn't just a regular game. These guys, like the Padres, would be down, and they're chipping away, and they're only a couple games above 500 with as good a team as they've got. So I know that while we keep saying that it's early, there's a lot of teams out there, especially when you look like the Yankees, being in last place. That really wasn't where people would slot them. And in the American League Central, you got the Kansas City Royals who are tearing it up and in first place, and nobody would have thought that. So hats off to Mike Matheny for getting his team up there, and hopefully they continue to win. But yeah, the Dodgers and Padres have been exciting, especially the antics between Trevor Bauer and Fernando Tatis Jr., which you can elaborate on. They had a pretty nice little deal.
It was amazing and hilarious. I watched it repeatedly. So if you with the whole one eye thing and then doing the walk after the home run was priceless. But yeah, if anyone out there is watching, you have any younger people in the family that you want to get hooked on baseball like competition, I would definitely recommend checking those games out. I think the Dodgers and the Padres are the new Yankees, Boston Red Sox for sure, because that rivalry's kind of going away. And in reality, the Cardinals and Cubs aren't the same. We haven't played the Cubs yet, which is kind of a shame. But, I think whenever we do play the Cubs, it's always one of those weird games that anything can happen. But they definitely don't scare me anymore with their pitching definitely taking a huge hit. But the Dodgers and the Padres are definitely fun to watch. So check it out. And the Royals are doing well. So I'm surprised the hashtag Hire Matheny hasn't kicked back up and everybody wanted to fire him. Him and Mabry have both worked for the Royals, and Cal Eldred. So, Chris, why don't you give everyone a quick social media update of Cardinals Nation 24/7? You are the founder, my friend, so take it away.
It has been nice to see an uptick in page follows on our Facebook page. We're close to 64,000 follows now. Twitter and Instagram, people can find us there also. But, the YouTube channel that we do here with our podcast, it's coming up getting close to 600 subscribers in just a short time. So that's pretty amazing. And, it's a testament to everybody that tunes in and likes, subscribes, and helps share this content out. Because, as I've said before, there's only so many hours in the day that we can share this stuff out. So the more people that tune in and like it, comment on the videos. That helps too. We'll shoot you a comment back, and we just appreciate everybody that tunes in. And we've also had quite a few downloads on the audio version as well. Even though we'd much prefer you to tune in here and see our pretty faces while we talk Cardinal baseball, it's available out there for audio on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else you can catch a podcast.
Very well said, Chris. Good job. Thank you for the update for Cardinal Nation 24/7.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you to all of our listeners and subscribers. We do appreciate the support.
They need to smash that subscribe button if they haven't already, because, we do get into some of the analytics that tell us most of the people watching these videos are from non-subscribers. I know some of that comes from people that don't have a YouTube account per se, so they're just clicking the video and watching it. But it takes only a minute to set up an account. And we'd appreciate if you do that and give us a follow.
We sure do, and we do appreciate all of our supporters subscribing and liking, and especially commenting from Asia.
Spam bots. I think we've had a few of those that hey, for a good time, click this site here.
I thought I was just trying to support them. So, I clicked on it. I was just trying to, scratch our back, we scratch yours. And I was shocked. I am a subscriber. I have liked and subscribed to their channel as well.
What kind of content do they have over there at AsianBabes.com?
And we don't charge $3.99 a minute here.
No, not yet.
A minute, Larry is showing his age. What is it, the wrestling hotline? 1-900-909-99. After the Cardinals finish up the series with the Phillies on Thursday, they head out to Pittsburgh for a series with the Pirates. It's always fun to watch games there in PNC Park. I like that ballpark, and we seem to usually fare pretty well. And then we go back home to play the New York Mets, who they will be hosting whenever we do this podcast next week.
Playing the Pirates, that should be a cakewalk, but for some reason, it's teams like that, and especially this season, they are finding ways to win. So if we catch them on a night where they're clicking, I mean, just because we're playing the Pirates, I wouldn't chalk that up as a W in advance.
It should be interesting either way, and sometimes you have to throw win-loss records completely out the window. It's just nice to, when you're playing some of these teams like the Phillies, to see your Bryce Harpers and your Real Mutos and some of the good pitching that they have. And I'll have to honestly take a good look at the Pirates and see who they have that's playing well, because it seems like almost every year the Pirates have another cast of characters that they're trying to, ride to the finish line, so to speak. So I guess we'll come up and we'll start talking about, in closing, Chris, anything you want to cover here at the end of the podcast?
Well, one thing that's not Cardinal related, I guess you guys heard that the Colorado Rockies general manager stepped down after just a few over 20 games this season, and Rocky fans are kind of on and off on wanting not just him gone, but the ownership to sell the team. But, after we fleeced them on the Arenado deal, I think Colorado fans are, I don't know.
What a lot of people don't realize is they say, everyone's excited that the GM is gone, but the GM had to get owner approval to make that deal happen, and Arenado actually had problems directly with ownership, which is one of the reasons that trade took place overall. So for all of you that don't really dive into the information as far as it goes, the Rockies are still the same team, and the move was made with the same ownership. So I can see the diehard fans definitely wanting a change of ownership, but Cardinals fans seem to want that all the time, and we seem to always do a good job. So I'm sure the owner of the Rockies is losing sleep at night, and his fans want him out of there.
Yeah, I've heard less of the fire John Mozeliak and Bill DeWitt this year than I have in years past, but there are those out there that getting Arenado was not enough. And while I might agree to an extent, it might have been nice to go get that complimentary piece to add to the puzzle along with him. I don't think you can say anything bad about this offseason and getting the best third baseman in baseball.
No, they went out, the fans, we wanted Arenado. They took care of that. All the fans wanted Waino and Yadi back. They went out and got both of them. I mean, the Cardinals front office has, more so than not, done what is in the best interest of Cardinals baseball every single year in and year out, and it's always paid off. Fans wanted us to go after Carlos Gonzalez years ago. He's been gone for several years now, not playing. They were upset we didn't re-sign Albert Pujols. He's a shell of his former self in L.A., and he wouldn't be playing at all if he was playing for us, because we couldn't afford to have him at first base. People wanted us to go after Chris Davis, who still plays for the Orioles. Well, he's still a member of the Orioles, but he's making all that big money and not doing anything. So the Cardinals seem to know what they're doing. A lot of us weren't happy about the Cole Wong situation, but that seems to be currently working out. So these guys are in their positions and have done this for a while for a reason. And I think after everything that they have done for the city of St. Louis and for Cardinals baseball, we should just kind of, let them take the reins and just sit back and enjoy the games as fans. But I know that'll never happen.
Well, I mean, we like to complain about things that we don't agree with. But again, I mean, the business dealings of the hotels, the apartments downtown, the fans here look at that as, that's money that could have been spent on the team. Well, first off, it's his real estate investments. That's a separate entity than DeWitt and the franchise. And as an outsider that doesn't live in St. Louis, is not from St. Louis, I love the improvements of the downtown area. I love going to the mecca of baseball now, and that's exactly what it's become. I mean, it's nice. It's not that drab and dark area anymore, and the empty lots, and that's huge as a baseball fan. I love it. I love that aspect of it. And I think the DeWitts for that. I mean, I don't agree with every move they've made, but they're millionaires and billionaires, and I'm a guy sitting here making a podcast. That's our thing. And even like the Colorado fans complaining, it's real simple. Pack the stadium. Arenado would have still been there.
Yeah.
Could have been. I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures from One Cardinal Way in St. Louis too, but man, talk about a beautiful view. That would be a nice, and it hit the pocketbook pretty good, but that'd be a nice room to get where you can just overlook and see Busch Stadium. And like Larry said, the way that it used to be around Busch Stadium was really dark and dreary, so it's impressive that the Cardinals are, making it a beautiful scenery downtown, and I don't, the ones that are complaining, like you said, they're just looking for something to complain about.
Yeah, but one thing that St. Louis is missing is we have our big, corporate structures that they've had for a long time, but they don't have a lot of those skyrise type luxury apartments that a lot of cities got. And it just adds to the skyline and the overall look of the ballpark. And that's one thing you can tell if you look at pictures back from the last several years at Busch Stadium, is they're always adding and doing something to develop that area. And this last December, even though COVID was going on, I was able to go home. Hadn't been back for a couple of years, and I was able to go to Ballpark Village and walk around and get some food there. But it was the museum wasn't open, which was disappointing, even though I'm a member of the museum. Yeah. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. The minor league season is coming up soon. We'll be starting on May the 4th. So my secondary podcast, I'm going to do this audio version only, Redbirds with Red Wine. I'll be kicking that off once the minor league season starts and we know exactly what players are going to be assigned to what team. I'll start doing a deep dive into that. That should probably be sometime next week. So look for that to come out. Chris, what do you got going on?
I will be doing a Cardinal Cuts here in the next day or so. With as much content as we put out between our flagship show and last week, we did have Conversation with the Nation where we had Brad Kell from Arch City Media as well as Matt Graves from Redbird Rants, which was a great show. Anybody that's tuning into this, go watch last week's episode. It's just opinion based, but it's worth watching. So, we don't want to podcast people to death. That's why I kind of pushed my side project out a little further, but I'll be doing a Cardinal Cuts with Chris Lawless the next day or two.
Everyone's complaining about blackouts. If you're blacked out and you don't like seeing it and you don't like the MLB app, you could always subscribe to the extra innings package. Fork out a little money. That's just what you have to do if you don't live local. Sorry, folks, but complaining to us doesn't do you any good. That'll do it for us for this episode of Cardinal Nation 24/7. Lucky number 13. We appreciate you stopping by. Please like, subscribe, and share if possible. Tell your friends. We do appreciate the support. And go Cards.
Go Cards.
I bet there's a voucher or a number on you open the game on the inside, like where the manual's supposed to be. That's where mine was. That little white card.
No, it just says warning. Nope, it just says warning on it. Then the other one just says the Xbox Series voucher included. That's all it is. There's no number. There's nothing. There it is on the back. Never mind. I stand corrected. My bad. Thank you, Mr. Jared Redwine.
You're welcome.
I'm old, dude. Give me a break.
At all. Oh, Kaylin, you gonna say hi? You ain't got no damn shirt on.
Hi.
Hi, hon. Go to bed.
Go to bed.
That's what I would tell Knucklehead.
Yeah. All right. Get out of here. God damn it.
Don't unhook the router.
Yeah, no shit. I've already told them that. I've got the arrow turned off.
Fucking playing we were doing this the other night, Larry. Fucking somebody undid the router, like we were in the middle of that live thing, and Chris just disappeared. Have any show notes for today?
Hold on a second.
All right, we'll see you later. And joining us from studio.
I'm about to whoop some ass up in here.
Studio 6, the usual studio.
Do you have it on gallery view now, Chris? You can see us all?
Yeah.
Okay. And Hello, Cardinal fans, and welcome to another episode of Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. I'm one.
If you ask it really nice, maybe.
I knew I should have started like that. I was doing something else, and I thought, oh, here we go.
You know, at the same time, it's nice to have a fresh young arm. You son of a bitch.
Yeah, what are you saying, Chris?
Yo, give me a minute, you motherfucker. God, stop doing that. You broke me down, man. I was like, don't look at the screen. Don't look at the screen. Oh, God.
What were you saying, Chris? We missed out.
I was watching Jared deep throat his mic.
Skills.
You have a little tickle down here, too.
Yeah, shit.
My next move is going to be to bring this bottle in. Oh.
Oh, you got me, man. Just stop doing that. Whew. Ah.
Nice. See you guys.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
I hate you guys.
See ya.
Bye.